Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of My Future Energy Career. My name is Jalen, and I will be interviewing today's STEM hero, Colleen McCamy. Welcome, Colleen.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited to get going with this presentation.
Yeah, so excited to have you here as well. So Colleen is a community outreach specialist with Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We're so happy to have you here. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to her, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as a career.
So I am a community outreach specialist. I work with making this complicated idea of, energy and where energy comes from and energy savings into something easy to understand. And that's also what I just love to do, is kind of taking things that are complex and could be confusing, but things that I'm really passionate about, and just making it easy to understand, to digest, and also for people to take action with. And another favorite part that I get to do with my current career is I get to be creative and interact with people, which are two of my favorite things. So I'm very glad that this role as a community outreach specialist encompasses those items. We can't be in the community like we normally would at different events and tabling and talking at presentations to different community organizations. And so we really had to shift this year to doing more virtual outreach, whether that be, direct emails to customers about actions that they could take. Another really cool thing we did was also launch this big online platform to really help take the guesswork out of, making efforts that could help the climate and help the community.
Great, awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And we'll move on to where you're from.
Yeah, so I am from San Diego, California. My mom was an elementary school teacher. Dad was a plumber and worked at a water district. And an older brother is a landscape architect, so works a lot with plants and designing that type of environment. And you can kind of see here, being in San Diego, I also loved being at the beach. I know this is going to be a theme kind of throughout, but you can kind of see here me surfing the huge waves, as you could see in that photo there when I was young. Being in an area that I was, lucky and able to go to the beach often, and kind of just seeing how much joy the beach brought, not only to me and my family, but to everyone at the beach, I think really inspired me to work in some sort of STEM career so I could continue to bring that passion for, being outside or at the beach or just kind of the environment. Okay, yeah, so I've also kind of mentioned this before, but I love to be creative, whether that would be in poetry, costume design, drawing, sculpture, pretty much anything that I can do to create things or do something new. I really like to do that. Also, as I said, like to be in the ocean, be at the beach. Here's another photo of me in the ocean, this time snorkeling, which is one of my favorite things in the whole world to do. And I also really like to cook and make new recipes. And that's just something I also find that I can be creative in as well. And, whatever I cook and make, then means I get to eat, which is also good. It's the upside of liking to cook. And yeah, kind of just, being outside and these passions helped to spark that interest in pursuing a STEM career.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And next, we're going to go into your educational pathway.
Yeah, so I went to school at the University of California, Santa Barbara. You could see in the picture on the bottom there, very beautiful school. And I feel very lucky that I got to go there and learn from there. And so what I learned was, and what I studied was environmental science with an emphasis in anthropology. And anthropology is kind of the study of people. And so I really liked the combination of these two studies of, studying the environment and also studying people, because I really am passionate about where, these things meet, where, people interact with the environment and how people can play a role in really making impacts in the environment. So that's kind of what I was really passionate in studying. And then I also participated in just some different work opportunities that allowed me to build skills outside of classes. And I think this was really important and key to where I am today. I always liked being busy in this. I did a climate fellowship at the school, so I was able to kind of be introduced to some different topics about energy, which really helped me where I am today. I worked in a lab, and you could kind of see this top right photo there is this really cool little kind of like underwater slug that I found in a microscope, which I was super excited about. And I think this was really important because while I liked working at the lab, I realized that, you know what, this may not be what I want to do as a career. And so I think that's important to kind of figure out if what things you like in a specific job or what you don't like. So I was glad I got that experience. I also got to work at a school aquarium, which was one of my favorite things ever. That's a photo of me holding the sea star up to my face. That's kind of really helped me get the skills of talking to people about kind of complicated items as like sea environments and marine biology. And so I got to transfer that to what I do and talking about energy. I also got to work at a field station, which is pretty cool, kind of learning more like management items there. And then just for fun, I got to work sports games and then also in a restaurant, which I feel like are valuable skills in working with different customers, really just kind of building the skills of getting things done and doing things on time. That was kind of outside of class. Now going to inside of classes, I loved learning all throughout my studies, and two of my favorite was an environmental movements class and then energy in the environment. And this bottom right photo there of kind of like a dress made out of different plant materials was part of this environmental movements class. We got to learn about, how people are really changing the environment in positive ways. And then we got to do final projects. So I, took my love of costume design and combined it with my studies and was able to kind of create this dress that represented some environmental movements that we learned about in the class.
And moving on, we'll discuss some things you had to learn to get here.
Yeah, to get here, so I kind of had to learn what some of my professional passions were and are. And as I mentioned before, working in a lab, I got to figure out that, this may not be my top passion is working in a lab. So kind of got to cross that off my list of things that I may not want to pursue, but also learning about what I want to do. I had another fellowship program through Climate Corps. And this was a 10-month program right after I graduated college to really kind of dip my toe into the field of energy and see if I'm passionate about that. And I'm really glad I did that because I was able to see that, yes, I am excited and passionate about this type of work. So I think that's a big thing that I had to learn, and I'm still learning what my professional passions are. I don't know if anyone will ever stop learning what they are because there's just so much out there. And then some other things I had to learn was just some technical skills. With this current position, I get to learn website design and management. And I really like this because, a lot of people are using websites and learning from there. And so I think that's a really cool tool. And I also had to learn a lot about energy. I took classes in it, but there's still so much to learn. And I think that's kind of an important part for my next bullet here is that I also had to learn I don't need to be an expert in what I'm interested to start out in my career. Before I thought I want to go into energy, but I may not know everything there is to know about energy and the system. But I really realized that, starting out, I don't need to know everything. I need to kind of be passionate and willing to learn. All of kind of my experiences, there's always things that I really enjoy doing and some things that I'm like, okay, this is, part of the job or the work that it's very needed but may not be my favorite. And so I think it's important to really learn and acknowledge items that you like in a specific job and then can look for those in other future positions that you'd want to be looking for.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing again. Now we'll move on to some advice you have.
My advice is pretty short here, but I would say never be done learning. I think there's just so much to learn, and that's just very exciting. So I don't think, anyone who goes into a job is like, oh, I made it into this job. I don't have to learn anymore. It's all done. It's fine. I don't think that ever happens. So my advice is just kind of always be excited to learn. And once you're in, a job or a position or a field that you are interested in, I feel like that learning and that passion to learn comes natural. And I think that, has helped me in any different job that I have been in to get me to where I am today. And I'm excited to learn in future positions that I may have coming up too.
Cool. Yeah. For our last portion, we're going to move on to a little Q&A section. So it sounds like you're very passionate in what you do, and that's amazing to hear. And I was just wondering, is there any point in your job where you had a responsibility or maybe there's something you had to do that you weren't too keen on, it wasn't your most favorite thing, And if so, how did you kind of work through that?
I think any job, there's things that you may not be super excited about doing. One thing that I have just been recently doing that I'll do it, it's not my favorite thing to do, but it is kind of going through a lot of data for some of our customer lists. And so it's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of rows, and just a lot of work on that. So it's not my top of the list favorite thing to do, but I think one advice I have in kind of doing those maybe more routine things that aren't as exciting is just to kind of get them done first. I know I tend to be like, oh, that's not as fun. I'll kind of put that lower on my to-do list, but I find that I'll, find other things that I like doing better and just kind of keep piling it on top. And so now I have shifted just kind of get those things out of the way first.
For our last question, it seemed like you were inspired by the ocean from a very young age. And I was just wondering, was there a certain point in your educational career or anything where you turned your focus to environment, or was there a specific event that made you really realize that energy was the pathway that you wanted to go?
I think so. I, knew I always loved the ocean, and I still do love the ocean, kind of being in it. But one thing I was, learning a lot of classes about how and how energy is made affects the ocean. And so, kind of learning more about that, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I kind of want to, try to tackle this problem from one of the root causes of, reducing emissions from the energy system. And so I think that's kind of where I shifted. And then I realized that, this kind of energy, that, careers and field has a lot of different innovation in it. And I feel like I'm very inspired by that and kind of seeing where we're going next in it. And so I think that's kind of that first initial shift was, wanting to get at the root cause of some things affecting the ocean. But now I am in it because I really love kind of learning about this innovation and seeing where we're going and really helping drive the future of energy and how we use it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. I would just like to give a huge thank you again to Colleen for coming onto this webinar and sharing your educational and career pathway.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was great. And I hope this was helpful to all the students.
Yeah, it was a pleasure interviewing you. I also want to take this time to give a big thank you to all of those watching. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. And if you're looking for any more webinars like this one, go on to YouTube and search up My Future Energy Career.